Picking back up where we left off yesterday in lesson 8.1, we finished the example at the bottom of the front page where they gave us an inverse variation problem. We had to write the equation, we had to graph it, and we had to answer a question about what y was when x was 10. Similar thing. Okay, we get to practice this type of problem again. Suppose x and y vary how? Inversely, when x is 8 and y is -7. That's going to be the twist. Okay, so it's going to be similar to the last problem we did yesterday, but we've got a negative involved. And so part A, what is the function that models the inverse variation? So I need to write an equation. How am I going to write an inverse variation equation? What do I need to find first?
K.
We need to find k, right? And in inverse variation, if you remember, it is k equals x times y. That's straight off your inverse variation notes at the top of the front page. So in this case, k equals, well, for x, we're going to substitute in 8. For y, I'm going to substitute in -7. 8 times -7 is? -56. I don't know what number I'm writing there, but it definitely was not a -56. So we have k is -56. What are my equation options I could write here? We're writing inverse variation.
Y equals -56x.
Not -56x, -56
Over x.
over x. So the y equals, remember, is k over x. So -56 over x. That's the one I tend to use the most. However, what's the other option? You can use this xy equals k, so we can say xy equals -56. They're both good equations. They both have their own good purposes depending on the situation. So, okay. B. What does the graph look like? Now, what did we do yesterday when we talked about the graph?
Chart.
We did an XY chart, right? And so as we set up this XY chart, you can use either of your equations. We can use the fact that y is -56 divided by x, or we can use the fact that x times y equals -56.
Miss Sargent,
Yes.
how are we supposed to do this if the graph is...
Don't worry about the graph yet. I'm going to adjust it.
Okay.
Don't jump ahead of me and graph yet because it doesn't make sense. I'm going to change this graph and break it into 4 quadrants is what's going to happen. So, okay, guys. How did we come up with these XY points yesterday?
Wasn't it multiples of, like, wouldn't it be multiples of 56?
Yeah, not multiples of 56. Technically, it'd be factors of 56. Yeah. But I asked you guys to come up with 2 numbers that multiply to be 48 yesterday, right? Today, it's going to be numbers that multiply to be -56. So, with that in mind, what's the first pair I'm going to start with?
8.
I'm going to start at the beginning. I'm going to start with 1. For 56, it's 1 and 56, but one of them you have to make negative.
Wouldn't it be the y that make negative?
It could be either or. Okay. So for this XY chart, I'm going to start with 1 times -56. Okay. Now, with that in mind, okay, then I'm going to check 2. Does 2 go into 56?
Yeah.
2 and -28 multiplies to be -56.
Does it matter which side?
No, because we're going to do the other side here in a moment.
I mean, like, does it matter if the x or the y is negative?
It doesn't matter if your x or your y is negative here, but be consistent, do them all the same, because then we're going to do the others here, the opposite here in a moment. Does 3 work? I forget.
No.
No. 4?
Yeah.
4 and negative 14. 5? No. 6? No. 7? 7 and negative 8. 8? And we should list these, right? Because this does make a different ordered pair, which is why I'm listing them. 8, negative 7. The other pair I'm going to need to say is 14 and negative 4. 28 and negative 2. 56 and negative 1.
So you go back down to.
Okay, yeah, so basically I just kind of then took the rest of my list and flip-flopped it. That situation, I had all my x's positive. Technically, what's the other situation here? All your x's could be negative, right? Now, when we go to graph this, I'll be honest, I'm not going to graph 1 and 56, right? That's too, 56 is too big. And I'll be honest, I'm not going to graph 2 and 28 either. So, what are my options if instead of having a positive x, negative y, we flip that scenario? So 4 and negative 14, we would want to think about negative 4 and positive 14. I'm just trying to get you to think of all the scenarios here. Instead of positive 7, negative 8, negative 7, positive 8, negative 8, positive 7, and negative 14, positive 4. Okay, I can't say I've had to do this on the BenQ before, so I'm not sure how well this is going to work because I don't have a ruler I could use here. But as Lauren was pointing out here, we have a problem. This is set up for quadrant 1. Do I have any points in quadrant 1? I don't. And so, yesterday I kind of extended my quadrants and just kind of drew a rough sketch of the other piece of the graph. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to, at my 10 lines, I'm going to draw x and y axes, basically. So I'm going to break this graph into 4 pieces. Does that make sense what I'm doing there? And I'm just using the 10 lines because they're the middle of the given graph. Okay. I'm going to redraw like this. And so now this is my x-axis. This is my y-axis.
Shouldn't all the y's be negative instead of x's? Because on the other side, they're not x's.
We're going to have both ways. In this scenario, we have all the x's positive. Over in this scenario, we have all the x's negative. Because when you're multiplying to get a negative, it's a positive times a negative, right? That negative could be either number. And if you recall yesterday our graph was in quadrant 1 and in quadrant 3, right? It was in opposite quadrants. Similar thing's going to happen today. So if I graph these purple points here. So 4, negative 14. Where's 4, negative 14 going to take me? It's going to take me right 4 and down 14. And I end up going off the graph some.
I start with. So could you start with either? Are we doing both of those?
We're gonna graph both
Could
of
you
them.
start
Yes.
with either of them?
Yeah. So I'm working down here in quadrant 4 right now because this is where I started. So 7, negative 8. I'm gonna go right 7 and down 8. Eight, negative 7. I'm gonna go right 8 down 7. And 14, negative 4. I'm going to go right 14. And down 4. My points look something like that. Does this shape look similar from yesterday?
Yes. Just the other one.
It's just last time it was up in quadrant 1. Now this one is down in quadrant 4. Remember, it's that curve that's facing away from the origin, facing away from 0, 0. As this curve extends, it's going to run alongside the x and y axis, never crossing, never touching. Now, I mentioned yesterday, there's always going to be two pieces, right? Yesterday is quadrant 1 and quadrant 3 because they were opposite quadrants. Right now, I'm in quadrant 4. Where's my other piece going to be? Up here in quadrant 2. And that's what these ordered pairs written in red are going to tell me. So, left 4, up 14. And I'm just kind of ballparking it on that one. Left 7, up 8. Left 8, up 7. And left 14. And up 4. Got the same shape just reflected? Okay. Total missed that point. It's a little better. Okay. A hint for these graphs. Yesterday, we needed two numbers that multiply to be a positive, right? Anytime you have two numbers that multiply to be a positive, your pieces of the graph will be like yesterday in quadrant 1 and 3. Today, two numbers had to multiply to be a negative. Guess what? Anytime you have two numbers that multiply to be a negative, your two pieces of the graph will be in quadrants
1,
2 and 4. There'll always be those diagonal quadrants. This will always be the negative look. What we did yesterday will always be the positive look. Okay? Obviously, Math Excel, it's going to be more of a multiple choice probably, picking out the graphs, those type of things. But don't let this get away from you. Know how to graph this. Okay? What about part C?
We can just look at our graph.
Okay, what is y when x equals 2? Did we mention that one? I guess technically we did, didn't we? What is y when x equals 2? It's right there. If it's not something that's in your chart, what did we do yesterday? We used the equation from part A, didn't we? And so if my equation is y equals negative 56 divided by x, and it says x equals 2, then I'm going to do negative 56 divided by 2. And negative 56 divided by 2 is negative 28. Okay. Get what you need there. Now I'm ready to look at the bottom part. I'm really surprised the blower hasn't kicked back on yet.
I know, it's so quiet.
You guys got what you need here? Okay. On the bottom half of this, we are talking about combined variation. The two pieces we're already familiar with, and I'm going to write them up here, are direct variation. And with direct variation, the equation I need you to keep in mind, so if we're talking about the y equals 1s, or y equals kx. So when it's a direct variation, when you're trying to write a direct variation equation, and there's a direct relationship, it's k times that other piece. Okay, so it's that constant times the other piece. If it's inverse, instead of multiplying, it is division. And so inverse variation, the y equals equation, is y equals k divided by x. Okay, so keep those in mind. If it's direct, you're doing k times the variable. If it's inverse, you're doing k divided by the variable. Now, we're going to throw in the word jointly. And I like to think of jointly as overlapping with direct. Okay, so when this says z varies jointly with x and y, well, they use the jointly because there's more than one piece, but it's like saying directly. And the reason I say it's like saying directly is because when z varies jointly with x and y, notice what's happening with k. It's z equals k times x and y. And so when you see that direct or that joint, you're thinking k times those variables. Okay? So z varies jointly with x and y. We're going to say z varies, I think z equals, jointly with x and y means k times x and y. This next one down here, z varies jointly. Well, again, when I see the word jointly, I'm going to sub in the word directly. And I do that because directly means I'm going to multiply by k. So if z varies, I'm going to say z equals directly with x. So I'm going to do k times x and y. So times y. Inversely with w. Inversely means we're dividing by the variable. So divided by w. Notice in all of that, though, there's just one k value. So as you're writing these equations, these statements, there's just one k value all the way through. So in this case, directly with x and y, so k times x and y. Inversely with w, well, that would be k divided by w, but the k is already there on top. And then this last one, as an example, z varies directly. So they use the word directly with x. So I hear z varies, z equals. Directly with x says k times x. Inversely with the product of wy, well, inversely says we're going to divide by the variable. And so it's divided by wy. So are you catching on here? Jointly or directly, we're going to be multiplying by k. So it's going to be k times the variable. Inversely, it's going to be k divided by the variable. That's kind of the idea of what you need to walk away from here with. Now, let's look at example 4. Try and get you guys an idea of what you're doing. Z varies directly with A and inversely with W. If A equals 36 when Z equals 2 and W equals 3, what is in when A equals 90 and W equals 3? That's not supposed to be an in.
Z.
It's a Z, yeah. I had to stop and think, wait, what letter is that supposed to be? What letter are we missing there? Yeah. Now, here's my recommendation. There's a lot of information thrown at you, yes? And I know, in my opinion, I'm looking at that, that's a lot of information that's probably confusing you. Okay, let's break it down into pieces. First sentence only. What can we get out of that sentence only? Z varies. What am I going to say Z varies means? I write. What was I saying up here? Every time it says Z varies, I'm writing. Except we're going to go with Z equals. Okay? So since it says Z varies, when I see the word varies, I'm writing equals. So Z varies means I'm writing Z equals. Then it says directly with A. What did I talk about doing when it said directly with something? If it's directly, we're going to what?
Multiply.
We're going to multiply. So directly with A means I'm going to do K times A because it says directly. And then it follows up and says inversely with W. When it's inverse, what do I do with the variable? If it's inverse, I'm going to divide. So this is going to be then divided by W. there is your equation to get us started with this problem. Z equals Ka over W. Now, my recommendation, look at this next little section. If A equals 36, when Z equals 2 and W equals 3. Notice they give you a number for every variable except what? Except K, which means what can I use this A, Z, and W to do? I can use A, Z, and W to help me find what our K is, what our constant value is in this situation. So I'm going to take this Z equals Ka over W. I'm going to fill the numbers in. So instead of Z equals, I'm going to say 2 equals K times A, so K times 36, divided by W, divided by 3. What would you like to do to solve for K? There's 2 different directions I could go here, so I'm kind of curious what you guys see and say. Multiply 3 to both sides? Because if it's something divided by 3, we can multiply by 3. I can do that. So if we multiply 3 to both sides to get rid of dividing by 3, 2 times 3 is 6. The 3's cancel over here, and K times 36, 36K. How do I continue solving for K? If it's 36 times K, I'm going to divide by 36. $36K divided by 36, 36 is cancel. 6 divided by 36.
1/6.
1/6. Okay, so now I know K is 1/6. Now, I've got one more question to answer here. Okay, one more question. And that is, what is Z when A is 90 and W is 3? Can we go back to that original equation and fill it in? Okay, so originally, and I'm going to write it out, it was Z equals Ka over W. Well, Z equals, what is my K value now? Now my equation is Z equals 1/6 A over W. Except, what are we provided at this point? We're provided A and W, so fill it in. 1/6 times A, which is 90, divided by W, which is provided as 3. Simplify it, and we're there. How do I do 1/6 of 90? Okay, 1/6 times 90 over 1. What do we end up doing? You end up taking 90 and dividing by 6, right? If you're doing 1/6 of something, take 90 and divide it by 6. 90 divided by 6 is 15. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So all of that to get to the end to say Z is 5. And now we lost our quietness.
Darn.
Now it's cold. It's blowing cold air. No. Okay. questions on A?
Please, how loud it is in 6 years ago.
It's always extra loud at the beginning, though. And then I feel like it usually calms down because I do feel like it's a little obnoxious right now. But
It feels very cold over here.
well, you're probably right in the.
See, I'm in the middle. I don't feel nothing.
Okay,
Oh,
let's try B. Now I feel like I need to yell. Okay, let's try B. Z varies jointly with A and D. If A equals 120 when Z equals 10 and D equals 3, what is Z when A equals 200 and D equals 4? I don't know about you guys, but that's a little overwhelming. Pieces? You can do this as if it's in pieces, right? Z varies jointly with A and D. Z varies. What am I telling you when you hear the word varies? Equals. Jointly. What's another word for jointly? Directly. So, Z varies. Z equals jointly with A and D. Or directly with A and D. What does jointly or directly say we do? We what? Multiply. So we're going to multiply K times A and D. So we're going to have Z equals CAD. Or Z equals KAD. Okay. Now, next part. Again, I wouldn't do the whole thing because it's going to be too many values and confusing. If A equals 120 when Z equals 10 and D equals 3. Stop there. They give you an A, Z, and D. If they give me A, Z, and D, that's going to help me find K, right? So we are filling in Z equals KAD. So Z equals, I'm going to say 10 equals K times A, which is 120, times D, which is 3. Well, 10 is 10. K times 120 times 3. What's 120 times 3? 360. So this is going to be 360K. If it's 360 times K, how do I get K by itself? Divide by 360. One over 36. You guys realize when it's 10 over 360, what can you do? Chop a 0 off of both of them, right? You chop a 0 off of both of them, it is 1 over 36. Okay. Last piece. What is Z when A equals 200 and D equals 4? Well, again, my equation was Z equals KAD, except what's K now? 136. So my equation is now Z equals 136 AD. But we're provided an A and a D value, aren't we? So Z equals 136 times A, which is 200, times D, which is 4.
1, 2, and 2 over 9, or 200 over 9.
Okay. I know, I have like 3 different forms on my answer key actually, so about any of those answers you mentioned. So if we multiply this as is, 200 times 4 is 800. And then if you try and divide that by 36, you find out that unfortunately, yeah, it doesn't divide nicely. So, I would not leave as 800 over 36 because that does reduce. 800 and 36 can both divide by 4. And when you divide those by 4, you get 200 over 9. That's one of my options I have. If you go the mixed number route, 9 goes into 200 22 times with a remainder of 2 over 9. And via calculator, that is 22.2 repeating. I'm happy with any of those. Kind of depends what Math Excel wants, right? Math Excel would not want 22 and 2/9, but those are all equivalent. I wouldn't do 800 over 36 because that's not reduced, but other than that, you should be good. Okay. Bless you. One more? What happens on the last one?
Chemistry.
Has more words? We throw some chemistry words in here? Okay. Here's the deal, guys. It's the same thing. Okay, it's the same thing, I promise. So let's read through the problem. The volume of gas varies directly with its temperature and inversely with pressure. Volume is 100 meters cubed when the temperature is 150 Kelvin and the pressure is 15 pounds per square centimeter. What is the volume when the temperature is 250 Kelvin and the pressure is 20 pounds per centimeter squared? I don't know if you guys see it or not, but this is the exact same setup as the last two problems. Exact same setup in that we can break it into 3 pieces. They give us the information to write the equation, they give us the information to find K, and they give us the information to solve the problem. So, first sentence. Same purple I've been doing. The volume of gas. What's a good variable for volume of gas? I'm going to say V. The volume of gas varies. What am I going to say when I see varies? Equals. Directly, which means I'm going to multiply. Directly, and that should say with its temperature. That's a typo there, technically. Directly, so we're going to multiply with its temperature. What's a good variable for temperature? T. And inversely, so inversely says I'm going to divide inversely with pressure, so I'm going to use P. Okay, you got that all? Volume of gas varies. V equals. Directly with temperature. So how do I do directly with temperature? K times T. Inversely with pressure, and so that's K divided by P. Okay. We wrote our equation, yes? Okay, let's see. I've been using red for the middle part of my problem. Volume is 100 cubic meters. So what are they giving me there? They're giving you V. When the temperature is 150, so T is 150, and the pressure, P, is 15. Did you notice? They gave me a V, a P, and a T. If I know V, P, and T, that means I can use that information to find K. So, here we go. V equals KT divided by P. So what did we say V was? 100 equals K times T. Temperature was 150 divided by P. Pressure is 15. What's the step you want to take here to solve for K? Okay, times 15 on both sides. Did anyone catch you could also just do 150 divided by 15 here as well? Those actually divide.
That's
So
what I did. I did 10K for like everything.
yeah, that works. And both are going to work, right? It's not going to matter. If you do 150 divided by 15, you get 10K, and then you'll divide by 10. Or what several of you were just talking about is you multiplied by 15. So 15 times 100 is going to be 1,500 equals 150K. And if 1,500 equals 150K, I'm going to divide by the 150. I don't know if I can show it right there or not. And so I'm going to have K is 10. Okay. Third part, just like the others. What is the volume? So we're trying to find volume when the temperature is 250 and the pressure is 20. Easy enough? Still using this same old formula. V equals, my formula now with K in it is K or 10T over P. Plug in your T and P. V equals 10 times, what's T? 250. Divided by P, which is 20. 10 times 250 divided by 20. Works out to be
1250.
125.
should be 125.
I got 125.
Oh, I put it there. Never mind.
Now, 125 what?
Meters.
Because volume was previously labeled as meters cubed, it should be meters cubed. Okay? What's your homework? Homework is lesson 8.1 in Math Excel, due tomorrow.
Sorry.